Hey everyone, here with a brand new series for y'all. Gonna be taking on a pretty intensive challenge. I'm going to be beating every single game ever released for the N64. I'm gonna be playing all these games on console, no emulators, and yeah, it sounds ridiculous, but you know, I love the N64 and I have a lot of nostalgia for it. It's a thing I played a lot when I was a kid, like lots of good games. There's also lots of not so good games, but I think it'll be fun. But yeah, so the rules are, I have to beat every game, like reach the end, feel like I actually finished. So like Mario 64, if you were to beat that, you have to beat the final Bowser, you know, roll the credits. Some games it might be like, oh, it's a sports game or something, harder to tell. I'll make sure that I have finished the game. It's going to take a long time, but it should be really cool. I don't have to achieve 100% completion, just beat it, but for some games I will. For instance, the game this video is based off of. So, the first game I've chosen is Donkey Kong 64, released in December 10th, 1999 by Rare. So let's get into the game. The very first thing when you turn this on is probably the most iconic thing, the DK rap.
He's the leader of the bunch. You know him well. He's finally back to kick some tail.
And a lot of you've probably heard this, even if you've never played this game. You know, back when I was a kid, that song was awesome. It was so cool. So, the story of the game, it's pretty basic. The Kongs are just enjoying themselves, relaxing on DK Isles, and then King K. Rool decides to invade and take over the island. Classic Donkey Kong story. He takes the whole Kong family prisoner, but Donkey manages to stay safe, and he has to save his family and his island. So when I first started playing the game, the first thing I noticed was how laggy it was. The frame rate stays very low pretty much the whole game. I know the N64 is notorious for having low frame rates, but I don't know, this game seems to take the cake. Like, it is noticeably laggy. It seemed to drop down like, felt like 6-7 FPS sometimes. Despite the performance issues, I thought it was a really enjoyable game. Just your standard 3D platformer collectathon that was all over the N64 back then. So, how do we beat this game? Well, there's a few things you need to finish DK64. The main objective of the game is to beat the boss in each level to get a key to free this giant Kremling that King K. Rool locked in a cage for not wanting to help him destroy DK Isles. But however, you won't be able to reach the boss room without collecting enough bananas to feed a hippo so it can gain weight to help a pig reach a key on the door. Yeah. What the heck is this, Rare? Like, come on, what were you thinking? Another issue is each new level requires you to have a certain amount of golden bananas to cause a sign blocking the entrance to the next level to move out of the way. So, the exact requirement to beat this game is collect enough regular bananas to reach the boss in each level, the highest being 400 in Creepy Castle, collect enough golden bananas to unlock each level, the highest being 100 for the final level, and beat all the bosses. Oh, you also need to have a special rare and N64 coin, but more on that later. Even though that's all you need, I enjoyed the game enough that I decided to get everything and achieve 101%. So before we even start the first level, Rare hits us with an absolute punch in the gut. I couldn't believe it. Immediately we learn that Wrinkly Kong is dead. Like, she just died at some point between DKC3 and DK64 and they just drop it on us like it's nothing. Like, come on. I liked Wrinkly Kong, but she's still here as like a ghost in the game giving you hints, so I don't know why they decided to do that, but it's what they did. Some of the other Kong family from past titles are in the game too. Funky Kong's back and he's apparently become some type of commando dude going out to war or something like that. Cranky's back too and he's become some kind of mad scientist, and I really don't know where Rare got these ideas from. The game's kind of wild. Candy Kong's back too, and well, Rare decided to get a bit spicy with her in this game. She gives us some cool musical instruments to play with and her melons. Oh yeah, there's also this new guy who's an engineer that defected from King K. Rool's army to get back at him. He wants us to gather blueprints from around the world to rebuild his machine to stop him. So the first level is Jungle Japes, and it's a pretty good intro to the game. There's not really anything too wild in this level, and since we don't have anybody other than DK, we don't really have any special abilities or gear yet. Pretty much all we can do is run and jump. I like this a lot to get you in the feel of how the game's going to be. Most of the time spent in the levels is just platforming and exploring how to collect regular bananas and golden bananas. By the way, when you reveal a golden banana, it plays this awesome sound clip like, oh, banana, oh, banana. And it's awesome. I didn't get tired of it at all throughout the whole game. I just love it. The platforming and collecting's fun and all, but where I think the game really shines is the boss fights. They're a lot different from anything else in the game, and they feel really well designed. Fun to beat too. The first boss is this armadillo. Get it? Because he's an armadillo wearing armor? Huh? Huh? Anyway, the boss itself, it's pretty simple. It just rolls around, shakes the ground, and shoots missiles at you. You gotta throw explosive barrels at it when it reveals a gap in its armor. Even how simple it sounds, you can immediately feel a difference in gameplay facing this boss. And all the bosses felt this way to me. Taking down the first boss gave us our first key. Remember, we need 8 of these to beat the game. We also obtain our first Kong companion in this level, Diddy, and he's noticeably more agile than DK, can run a lot faster and jump a lot higher. It's more fun to play when you're faster. And for some reason, he kind of sounds like Mickey Mouse. So once we get another Kong, it reveals the game's biggest flaw. Certain collectibles can only be obtained with a specific Kong. When we unlock Diddy Kong, we start noticing these red bananas scattered throughout the level, and they can only be picked up by Diddy. It's not all that bad until you realize all those yellow bananas you picked up with Donkey can't be picked up with Diddy. And later in the game, when you have 5 different Kongs to play as, that's 5 different colored bananas to collect with each one. The only way to switch to a different Kong is find a Kong barrel, which are placed throughout the map in each level. It's very tedious when you find something to collect that's out of the way, and it's a different Kong than the one you're controlling. You have to go find a Kong barrel and then come all the way back. I think a better choice would have been to have the bananas able to be collected by any Kong, and then there's certain areas of the game that can only be reached by using a certain Kong's unique abilities. Fortunately, for the modern day, there is a patch to this game that you can get. It's out there, just Google it, and it'll let you switch Kongs anywhere. And it basically eliminates that frustrating aspect of the game entirely. But I want to play the original version of these games the way they were intended, because that's what feels right. Anyway, moving on, we now have access to level 2, Angry Aztec. This level changed the scenery from a lush green jungle into a huge desert with a constant sandstorm. I actually really like the environments they created in this game. One of the more memorable things people seem to have from this level is there's a pyramid where some guy tells you to get out. Get out. I mean, just listen to this. Like, come on, that would have scared me to death as a kid. Kinda reminds me of the drowning timer from the old Sonic games on the Genesis. So the second boss is this big fire-breathing dragonfly thing. It's like this huge flying beast, constantly bombards us with fireballs, but thankfully it occasionally gets heartburn or something and we can hit it with an explosive barrel. And after beating that, we get the second key. Second key also gives us 2 more Kongs. We get Tiny Kong, who's my favorite to play as because she's so mobile, and we get Lanky Kong, who well, he slaps his butt a lot. Coming up next, we had to take on level 3, Frantic Factory. This was probably my favorite level of the game. Just something about it felt really cool. Maybe it was the giant vertical climb to turn on all the machinery. But in this level, we unlock the final companion, Chunky Kong. He's big, slow, and he can pick up a boulder with relative ease. You know, from the DK rap. After unlocking all 5 characters, I really started to notice how often I'd run into a collectible I needed to switch Kongs for. But at the same time, I felt really comfortable with the game and I was getting pretty good at it. The boss in this level is a weird jack-in-the-box thing. You have to jump around to different platforms with Tiny. It was pretty fun, but it's one of the least favorite bosses, I think. It's pretty repetitive. Taking this guy out, we got the 3rd key, and I started getting pretty invested in the game at this point. Also, remember how I said you needed a special rare and N64 coin to beat the game? Well, in this level we get the N64 coin. Rare decided to throw in the original Donkey Kong arcade machine in this level, and you have to beat it to beat the game. First you beat the original version of it, and then they changed it to like a harder mode. I'm not sure if that's in the original DK arcade, but that's how you get the N64 coin. Honestly thought this was a really cool thing for them to do, and it also showed me how difficult Donkey Kong arcade is. Like, I had no idea. So the other special coin we have to get is the rare coin, and it can be obtained after getting 75 bananas with a Kong 15 different times. I decided to do it in the first 3 levels, and I unlocked a new reward from Cranky. He lets us play Rare's first ever video game. I'm not really sure what it's called, but it looks like an Atari game, so I'm not sure if it was for the Atari or maybe an arcade game. But anyway, you have to get over 5,000 points to get the coin, and I found a cheesy strat where you just sit at the top of the screen and nothing can really hit you, and it made it really easy. So level 4 is Gloomy Galleon, and well, it's a water level. Games, they just keep pushing water levels on players, and they're just not as fun as the other levels. But this level isn't all that bad, I guess. One thing I noticed is the game lags a lot less when you're in the water, so that was easily the best part. It's just a nice break from all the FPS drops. Boss number 4 is this big pufferfish. You fight him with Lanky. It's pretty straightforward. You just move the boat around to the DK stars, and then he gets electrocuted, and then he flies away. No trouble here really, and we got the 4th key. Level 5 is Fungi Forest, and apparently it's an unused level from Banjo-Kazooie, which, thinking about it, does kind of look like a level you'd see in that game. Not only is the level absolutely massive, but there's an additional element locking you out of collectibles where you can swap the level between day and nighttime. And some things are only available during the day and some only at night. So this, along with the Kong switching, this was the most tedious level easily. Like, there's so much backtracking you have to do. One really amazing thing about this level is there's an in-game collectible that wasn't discovered until 2017. The game had been out for 18 years and somebody found it. So I haven't mentioned it yet, but there's these rainbow coins you can get that you don't really need them, you just need a certain amount to buy all the power-ups from Fungi and Cranky Kong. But the rainbow coin gives you 5 coins for each Kong, and you use a power move on a special pile of dirt. And it turns out one of those dirt piles is hidden under a grass texture that's impossible to see without modifying the game. I'm not really sure if that was intentionally left there, if maybe a dev put it there and then they forgot about it, and then when they covered it up, just stayed in the game. But it's really cool, like, you don't hear about that happening. So one of the most difficult things in the entire game is in this level. You have to race against this rabbit with Lanky Kong to obtain one of his golden bananas. So when you race him, he's like showing off, messing around, he's like celebrating, like, oh, you can't beat me. And then, you know, it took a couple tries and then I beat him, and I got the great reward of 3 coins. Pretty much useless. And the rabbit's like, oh, I wasn't trying. If you want the reward, you have to beat me when I do try. So you play him again, and he does not hold back at all. Turns out you have to get an ability to run faster with Lanky in a later level. But even with the ability, the race is nuts. It took me over an hour of trying to beat it. And even with that, I used a glitch to get a head start in the race. So if I didn't do that, it would have taken even longer. I feel like a lot of people who played this struggled with this. Anyway, the 5th boss brings back the giant dragonfly thing, and this time you fight him with Chunky, and he's terrified. He's like begging not to fight. But the fight's relatively the same, except this time the platform is slowly sinking into the lava, so you have to beat him quick. After beating him, got the 5th key, 1 step closer to beating the game. So level 6 and 7 actually unlock simultaneously after finishing 5, and so I just went to level 7 first, Creepy Castle. After this point in the game, I had all the abilities for all the Kongs, and I was pretty comfortable with the game. However, there was one thing standing in my way that probably me and everyone who played this game struggled with: Beaver Bother. Rare added these little mini games you have to play, and throughout the game you'll eventually run into a mini game. You gotta do something silly like shoot a bunch of enemies or something, or survive till time runs out, and you get a golden banana. In Beaver Bother, you have to herd 15 beavers into a hole in 60 seconds, and you control this croc who can bite to scare them in the hole. It couldn't be more simple. The problem is, this mini game is unbelievably jank. So often, and I mean so often, when you're trying to push a beaver into a hole, it'll just get stuck on like this random invisible wall. And they're all over the place, and it drove me absolutely nuts. Like, just look at this. The beaver's floating on thin air and it's running towards the hole and it won't go in. Finally, after like an hour, I was able to beat this cursed game, and I was so relieved. But then it turned out Rare put it in the level twice, so I had to do it a second time. Like, they had to have been trolling with this. This was easily the hardest part of the whole game, and I think most people who play this will agree that this is just not a place where this game shines. So the 6th boss here is kind of weird. You like fight fight this big wooden fake King K. Rool that some of his minions created. You just take the Kongs and launch them with a cannon at it till it falls apart. It's pretty easy, and we got the 6th key. There was only one level left before the final level, and that's Crystal Caves. To be honest, this was probably the least memorable level for me. There was this race against a beetle with Lanky, and the beetle like rigs everything, but it still wasn't all that tough. The boss here is the return of the Armadillo, except this time it can fly and it has this giant cannon it can shoot you with now, but still it's pretty easy overall, but it is a fun fight. And we got the 7th key, which unlocked the final level. So the final level here is Hideout Helm, where King K. Rool is, and this level is honestly awesome. Rare devised a bunch of challenges that require to use each Kong's unique abilities to beat. It's kind of like what I wish they had done with the collectibles, but at least they got it right in the final level. This level requires you to finish under a certain time limit. The base is 10 minutes, and depending how many blueprints you got throughout the game, you get 1 minute for each one. Thankfully, I'd been collecting everything, so I had 50 minutes to finish. When you get to the end, K. Rool runs away and you're able to get the final key if you have the rare and the N64 coin. So with all 8 keys obtained, we can free that Kremling K. Rool locked away. He returns the favor crashing K. Rool's getaway ship and we can finally take him on. So I have no idea who decided to have this be the final boss fight, but I kinda love it. You end up in this huge boxing ring where K. Rool is in a full-on boxing uniform ready to fight, and somehow there's like a big audience and a microphone host, and how did it all fit in his ship? I don't know. Basically, the Kongs have to beat K. Rool in a boxing match with some unbiased judges keeping track of the timer. Each Kong has to fight individually, and they all have their own unique challenge to take him on. And every time you knock him down, the judges, who are unbiased, save him with the timer. And while I thought the boss is really amazing in terms of design and the challenges are neat, the boss has a huge problem in that there are no checkpoints or anything like that. So if you die, you have to do the whole fight all over again. And for my clear, I think the fight took almost 20 minutes. So imagine dying at the end and you have to start all over. A lot of people who were watching live said they never finished the game because of this fight. But thankfully, I was able to beat him on my 2nd try, and that was the last thing I needed to officially beat Donkey Kong 64. So there you have it, that's my journey to beat DK64. I finished the game in just under 29 hours of playtime, although I did get 101% completion, so it would have taken quite a bit less if I didn't do everything. Overall, the game was pretty enjoyable. It's just standard 3D platformer collectathon. Most of the challenges were enjoyable. Scenery, theming, it was really good. The music's awesome. All the DK games have great music. My main issue was how laggy it was, and I think if that were fixed, I would absolutely love this game. I give it a 7 out of 10 for enjoyment. For the most part, the game was not very difficult. There were only a couple things that really spiked the difficulty, the rabbit race and Beaver Bother. And the last boss is kinda tough too. It's kinda hard to rate this one on difficulty, but since the final boss can't be avoided, I'll give it a 7 out of 10 for difficulty. I can see a lot of players struggling with the K. Rool fight. So, this is the first of many N64 games I'll be beating in this challenge, but I'm excited to beat a lot more. This video is incredibly different from anything I've ever done. I've never done anything like this. It's putting me way out of my comfort zone as a content creator. So please let me know what you thought, like if you liked it, if you changed some things in the comments, like I'd love to hear it. I'd appreciate it a lot. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and see you next time.